Welcome to the Port Aransas Museum. Today we're going to take a tour of the surf exhibit, which is just about to be replaced by the Tarpon Era. So I thought we'd get one more tour in. Please sign in. And as you look around, first you can see all kinds of surf memorabilia on the walls and in the corners. And we'll start with the first poster. It kind of talks about how surfing got started in Port Aransas. You can always stop action and read it. But basically started with one person that had learned in Hawaii, brought a board back, and for a while was the only one surfing. But of course surfing is too much fun. It caught on very quickly. First there were clubs. Come around. You can see a poster on the Kanaka Club. And you might recognize some faces on some of these pictures. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. You can see Pat McGee there in the center. You might recognize some of these guys too. There's Pat again on the bottom left. These are just these surf clubs were just really kind of like teams, gave people the opportunity to compete against other surfers in the area. And the first shop in town, owned by George Hahn, which is about where the Venetian Hot Plate is now, but for a long time it was a hot dog stand, I believe. And you come over here, you see that a picture of the Surf Shack. This one was opened in 1964, Beach and Station. This is the one that was right there by Custer's Last Stand of Zero Wind, so you can read the dialogue. And owned by Marvin Harper. This talks a little bit about Surf Shack being moved. And a van in front of Marvin Harper's Surf Shack. Maybe dropping off a board or picking one up. And of course, Pat McGee also started off a little shack on the beach, where he did rentals and eventually, got more involved in having a store, eventually had two very large stores. And this is the history that has to do with Pat McGee. Prominent name in Port Aransas. You'll see a lot of Pat McGee memorabilia. Let's go ahead and go over to the corner. We have Pat McGee's production board with the Pat McGee's logo. Very popular on t-shirts. We also have, a really nice example of a fin box and fin locks for putting your thruster fins in or out. And of course, this is a earlier fin box too, and we'll go to fins in just a second. We also have a nice shirt to wear, keep the sun off your arms on the beach, and one of those foam visors to keep it off your nose and forehead. But if you're going out to dinner, you could wear this fancy shirt and be in style and still have the Pat McGee's symbol. Now, we talked about fins for a minute, so let's go ahead and go over to the fin, Evolution of Fins exhibit. See right here. And this is the little narrative about the fins. But basically it started off with all fins had to be glassed in. You didn't get a choice of changing them out unless you were good at cutting and refiberglassing. And this is a parquet fin, very popular with wood inlay and wood design, boards that had a lot of wood in them initially. And then a lot of people called them logs because that's about how they wrote too. But they were very popular in their time. And then of course fins, with the building of the fin box, they started developing a lot of different shapes. The first very large fins, kind of looks like a dorsal fin of a shark or dolphin, but upside down. But very thick at the base. And then surfers started realizing that if you didn't have quite the thickness of fin, you could turn a lot faster. So they began experimenting with cutaway designs, and the fins got longer to give you the penetration. Probably one of the best fins, I think, is this wing nut weaver cutaway right here. very good depth of penetration, but look at how thin that is in the center. It's very thin. Here's a little bit larger version, but the wingnut weaver gives you depth of penetration, but you can turn and spin the board a lot faster. And of course, the side fins or thrusters, very popular in the 80s. I saw a guy one time that had 6 of them on there. I think that was Rick Dinnerman, if I'm not mistaken. Everybody was kind of experimenting and playing around with them, but they kind of backed off later in the 90s. We also have some memorabilia over here. Texas Surfing Champion poster signed. Looks like that's Wingnut Weaver and Robert August signed those. And the summer participants, the summer too. And we have a surf top, wetsuit top, which now have dramatically changed, and a shirt made by Molly Trice. And we have the story of Molly Trice right here, 2 pioneer women in surfing, Molly Trice and Paulette Just. Molly got into surf wear and also co-founder of Island Surf and Sunwear. And Paulette was just really good, a good surfer and into surfing, winning several competitions, as it says. We also see that we have some information about George Lowe, who is one of the first, if not the first, shapers on the island. There have been a few others. His boards were at first very heavy till he came out with a lighter version later on. I'll let you read that. You can stop and read that. But we do have 2 really great examples of his boards right here. And these are the heavier boards, triple stringer, as you can see on this one. Yeah, I think the one behind it is single, but look at the thickness of that stringer. That's one of the thickest. And look at the indentation for nose riding, pretty impressive. And you were stuck with the fin design on these boards because they were glassed in, unless you brought it back to the shaper and he cut it off and glassed a new fin, or you're good with fiberglass and could do it yourself. And then last we see on the back wall, we've got one of George Lowe's surf shop signs. We've got some more memorabilia as far as Birdwell Britches sign, some actual Birdwell Britches. I think these are Cliff Schlabach's. And of course, we've got some surf jackets, Dorothy Turnbull's, and we got another one right here. Also on the back wall, we have some special subjects. Riders of the Storm talks about storm surfing, one of my favorite subjects and activities. Of course, that's when for those of you that don't know about surfing, that's when we have a storm in the Gulf, preferably not heading here, that sends a big swell and gives surfers an opportunity to have some really large, sometimes double overhead, sometimes triple overhead surf. And we have the Dunes Dance Land. A lot of people believe that were around here in the mid-60s, that this was the funnest place and the center point of surfing. It was right where the Dunes condominium is now. It was a great place to eat, dance, and just hang out with everybody. I know some people asked, there were a few proposals in there, and just a great place. But of course, like a lot of things on the island, hurricanes changed the history of Dunes Dance Land by destroying it, and then it was torn down later on. Horace Caldwell Pier you got to talk about the pier, because that really is the true center point for surfing, since currents and longshore currents have moved and changed the structure of the bottom to where that's usually the best place where it's breaking. There are other places, and local surfers know those, but most of the time, on a good day, the majority of surfers are surfing along the pier. And you can see Tony Werswa At the top, one of the first original surfers in Port A, and you got Tiger Witt at the bottom, who was actually my deckhand at the time that picture was taken. And here's a little bit more history on the pier, because it's been a lot of lengths. It was originally built out to 1,200 feet. Carla destroyed it. Then it was built out to 1,400 feet. And I'll let you read the rest. But you know, as hurricanes kept changing and tailoring the length of Horace Caldwell Pier, the county settled on, you know, a much shorter pier with concrete toward the end. And we also see the pier was a kind of a subject of controversy too. And in 1997, we had enough surfers and surfer parents on the school. I'm out on the city council to change and remove the city ordinance prohibiting surfing within 200 feet of the pier. And that really took a lot of wind out of the sails of the fishermen that used to throw all kinds of stuff at the surfers, including weights, and a lot of conflict settings. Plus, you didn't have to wait till the sun went down to go into your truck because the constable was parked in front of it waiting to give you a ticket. And again, the memorabilia there. So I think I've covered all the parts of the surfing exhibit. Our lighthouse lens. Oh, that's one other thing. We have this really cute exhibit of, and I don't use that word lightly, but it just kind of talks about different surf terms that surfers use to kind of educate the general public, which is great. My wife had a poster of a wave she called the Green Room in Kerrville at a art show, and one of the persons there asked her, what does the Green Room have to do with a wave? So this is kind of a nice little exhibit. Some of them have fallen off and haven't been put up, but really, really nice. Well, thank you. We're done with our exhibit. You're welcome to come in and look around at it. We have some other static exhibits that don't change as much, like the timeline in the corner. And of course, the Totsie Milkins fish that was caught in the 1932 first deep sea roundup, which actually was called the Tarpon Rodeo at the time. And of course, this is our archive. And we have our nautical, this is our gift shop. Books and different types of memorabilia, including photos. It's one of my favorites of the Deepwater Saloon. And we have our nautical history area. But I'm not going to spend time here. You're just going to have to come in and check it out. Have a great day. Let's head out the back door. Oh, look, there's still some surf shirts from the last surfing contest available.